Well, hello everybody out there in internet land. This is Chris from HNLegacy.com with another exciting episode of Topher's Log. We're back inside the HN Legacy studios, as it were, for another Horror Nights-centric discussion. This one's a little bit more of a fun one. We're going to talk a little bit about potential for adding houses at Horror Nights and where could they put them? Because apparently that's been something that people have been talking about lately, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it myself. We've been down this road before. Back in 2014, 2015, Horror Nights was going to add a 9th house. But where were they going to put that 9th house? Oh my god, they have no room. And I actually did a whole blog about it where I sort of speculated on where they could potentially put another house. And wouldn't you know it, 2 of those locations have since come true. Both the spare Shrek Theater and the space in the MIB extended queue. Both of those have since received houses since 2015. One of the things that I wanted to make, do we really want more than 10 houses? Like, are people clamoring for 11 or, for fuck's sake, 12 houses? Like, that's a lot of houses, guys. Do you really want 12 houses? That's to me, that's too much. I think that's a little bit overkill. We should probably keep it and cap it at 10. I think 10 is a nice number. You know, it's sort of in that sweet spot between too much and too little. I think 10 is fine. I think we should keep it at 10. Let's not go for 12. But if we were going to go to 12 or 11, where could they put extra houses? Apparently, there's been some discussion about the Blue Man Group stage. Or soundstage, I should say. Obviously, Blue Man Group has closed up shop. Blue Man Group is no longer a thing at Universal Orlando Resort. They've already gotten rid of the big Blue Man Group face that was on the front of the building. For those that don't know, Blue Man Group is in Soundstage 18. That's where the actual theater was for Blue Man Group. Next to Blue Man Group is Soundstage 17, and the next to that is Soundstage 19. So if you were looking at the Blue Man Group building with the face on it, and you look to the left, so it's 18, 17, 19. So that goes right down the line. Now, we've had houses in Soundstage 19. We've had a couple of American Horror Story houses, and we've also had the repository. So stuff has been in Soundstage 19 in the past. The thing about the Blue Man Group Theater, let's play devil's advocate here a little bit. Let's say that this year at Horror Nights, they're still requiring masks, which I'm willing to bet that masks will still be a requirement no matter what the situation is come September. I still think they're gonna make you wear a mask. I think restrictions might be a little bit eased in terms of, especially when it comes to drinking. But I think you'll still have a mask requirements in place at the studios. I could be wrong, but that's just my sort of gut feeling at this point. Right now, the Fear Factor Live stage is a U-rest area. So when you walk around, you have you could take off your mask and give yourself a little bit of a rest for a short while with your mask off. Let's say that Universal decides that they're going to have a show. You know, because I don't know what that looks like in the current times that we live in, if they do decide to have a show. But let's say that stage is still being used. If the Blue Man Group, because I don't know, I have not asked, I should say, I have not asked the birdies what it actually looks like inside there at this moment. But there is a stage in there. So, you know, I mean, Blue Man Group was a show. So let's say they decide to do a show. Why not utilize the stage that's there to do a show for Horror Nights? I mean, that could be a possibility. Yes, potentially, if they were, if that space has been completely gutted and it's basically a soundstage at this point, an empty soundstage, yeah, sure, they could use that stage for houses. They could use Soundstage 18, they could use Soundstage 19. Of course, the only obstacle in their way would be if there was production going on. You know, then they couldn't use the stages. Just as we've had that happen in the past, where certain sound stages couldn't be used because of production. Actually, for Halloween Horror Nights 30, there is a soundstage that was at the time being used, and I think just completed filming. That whatever that David Makes Man show is, I don't know what it is. I don't know what channel it's on, but whatever that show is has been filming, so they couldn't use the soundstage. So there are you know, instances where they can't use them. So that would be the only obstacle in their way. My only gripe to having, let's say they wanted to do 12 houses and they put 2 houses in Soundstage 18 and 19. My only gripe with that would be, my God, it's a lot of houses up front. That's all the houses would be, the entire event would be more or less way more front loaded than it already is, with so many houses up front, because you've got the soundstage houses and you've also got the spare Shrek theater. So there's, you know, that's a lot of houses up front. So that would be a nightmare for me if that was the actual case. They have a couple other options, like if they wanted to add another house or 12 houses or whatever. Of course, in 2016 we had the MIB tent come. A couple quick things about the tents. The sprung tents are not technically tents. They are designed to be permanent. I use that in quotation marks. Permanent structures. So they're designed to be up for a long period of time. The sprung in sprung tents comes from the name of the company that makes the structures. The MIB tent is like a venue tent. It's a wedding tent. It's basically one of those white tents that you rent for weddings or parties or whatever. They reinforce the tents with you know, to make sure that, you know, it's a sturdier structure, but it's still it's a wedding tent. That's basically what it is. It's not designed to be up all the time. I made mention of this before. The MIB tent does come up and come down every year, with the exception of this year. This year the tent stayed up all year round because they didn't take the houses down. So the houses that they built last year stayed up all this time. That is not usually the case. Since the tent has been put up from 2016 until this year, the tent has gone up and come down every year. At first, to my knowledge, the reason why they did it was because it was a rental, so they had to give the tent back. But I think now it's more about the permits, because it's not a permanent structure. They have to take it down after every event. Plus, they could use the space. It's still a line for Men in Black. It's an overflow queue for Men in Black, so they could still use the space. There are spaces around the park where they can put another wedding tent, whether that's backstage behind where the New York facade is. There's some space back there, I think. They could also split the parade buildings. In that article that I wrote for my blog a couple years ago, I actually made mention of them potentially splitting the old parade building into two. The new parade building is a big structure. It's a massive, long structure. So there's a lot of room in there, but they do use that to house the floats. So, you know, I don't quite know where they could put the floats if they were to use it. What they could potentially do, I guess, is what they used to do with the old parade building, and I think they still do. I'm not sure. I think the old parade building is now used for different purposes these days. I don't think it's specifically designed for the floats anymore. I think all the floats go into the new parade building. But in the past, what they used to do is they used to just push the parade floats off to one side of the building, and then they would use the other side of the building for the actual Halloween Horror Nights house. So they could potentially do the same thing in the new parade building, but I don't know exactly how much space the floats actually take up inside the building itself. All I know is that the building is very big. It's a very massive building. So there is potentially a lot of room there for them to do. They could also use the queue, the overflow queue for Fast and the Furious. There's a lot of space back there for them to potentially use. The problem with using Fast and the Furious is that Fast and the Furious is, of course, open during the events, or has been open during the event, so they would have to close the attraction down during the events. I know, you know, there are a lot of fans out there who would be happy about that because they hate the attraction, but they do utilize that attraction to sort of, you know, feed people off of the houses and to have them do other things, so, you know, the houses don't get too crowded. It's a potential option. There is a lot of space in that queue, so they can do that. I'm not exactly sure, you know, if they were to do that. My only line of thought would be, okay, so you use the queue, because there was a lot of space in that queue. Like, if you ever walked through the extended queue at Fast and there's a lot of space. It never gets used, but there's a lot of space back there for potential placement for a house. In terms of wide open space, though, they could potentially use, I guess, where the garage is, You know, they could take the stuff out of there and they could use the garage space for actual house space. That could work. But let's say they keep the attraction open during the day, that would be an issue. You know, they could potentially close the attraction during the day. I'm sure to no fault of fans who hate the attraction, but they could potentially do that during the day, and then just utilize all that space for a house. I mean, that is totally an option for them. So there are things that they can do. I don't want 12 houses. Do people really want 12 houses? That's a lot of houses. That's a lot of 11 is a lot of houses. 10 is a lot of houses as it is. But I think that, like I said, I think the 10 houses is a nice, you know, it's just enough, you know, for people to be satisfied. I think 10 is fine. I don't know why we need to go more than 10. I think 12 is too much. I think 11 is too much. But like I said, there are options. They do have options. I think the easiest option for them to do is if the Blue Man Group space is open, or Soundstage 19. They've got 2 sound stages right there. You know, I think that would be the quicker option. Like, let's devil's advocate, let's say this year they have decided to do 12 houses or 11 houses. They know that the Blue Man Group space is going to be open, so that would be an easy solution for them to go ahead and put a house in there. You know, but for a more permanent solution, you know, the using wedding tents or the rental tents, I think, would be a more permanent solution if that was the case. Do you all really want 12 houses? I'm gonna say it over and over again. 12 houses is a lot of houses. I don't know if I want 12 houses, but yeah. So any other spaces that you could think of that they could potentially put houses, I think that's pretty much it. I think the only other option, the extreme option, would be to open the event up to 2 parks. And that's the only other way that you're gonna get more house space. But I don't think that's ever going to happen again. I've been wrong before, but I would think that the 2 house thing is not going to be a thing again for quite some time. But that's just me. But that's another easy fix, expensive fix, but that's an easy fix for them to potentially have more than 10 houses if they don't have the space. 12 houses is so much. 12 houses is so much. Oh my God, that's a lot of houses. But anyway, guys, as usual, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Well, hello everybody out there in Internet Land. This is Chris from HNLegacy.com with another exciting episode of Topher's Arc. We are back inside the HNL Legacy studios, as it were. Excuse me. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. 3, 2, 1.